we said, okay, now we're going to be punks. So we cut the hair and all that. And we're just like, we're going to do this. And then we started getting shows. So we, like, luckily, those other guys, two of the other guys had already played some cool stuff. The Descendants was one of the shows they did. I went to that show. And they had a little bit of pull with this guy, Joey Admin. So he kind of like, I don't know if it was by pity or what. He was like, all right, kids, I'm going to give you this show. You might not make much, but, and you're opening. And we were just happy just to get anything, you know. And that's where it all
Were you
started.
worthy? Were you like actually
Yeah, it was good.
worthy of?
I mean, at that point, I had already been playing a couple of years, so the singing was a little better. My lyrics were a little better. I think my approach to not being nervous on stage was better. I mean, there were still some cheesy moments. I mean, it was the time itself, but you know, we were all writing songs about, you know, fuck Ronald Reagan. I mean, half of our set was based on that back then, you know.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's true. That's not even a joke. We were like singing about Reagan and being rejected by girls and jocks in society. I mean, it was typical stuff, you know. Like now, you know, now that's what you wrote about back then. You know, you can go back to some of those records, you heard it. You know, but I mean,
That's
it's
what the
pretty.
time was about.
Yeah, it was. You know, and we thought we were cool. We thought we were like the coolest thing ever. And I think
Nice.
eventually I got kicked out of that band, and then they brought me back because the guy that wanted to sing really wasn't that great at singing. But I was still supporting my friend who was the guitarist, so I'd still go to the same parties. And then they'd bring me in to sing a couple songs, and that guy would run out of breath. And then before then, they were like, "Fuck it, just let Ray continue singing." Like it was like probably a
Yeah.
dumb argument where I got kicked out, and then I would still stay friends with them, and then they brought me back. And then
Well played, my friend.
you know, we were just kids. We made some demos, 4-track demo stuff that we'd pay like somebody like $50, record 5 songs that sounded like garbage, but it was better than nothing, you know.
What year was this?
That would have been 87. By the time we got decent, that would have been 87 going into 88.
Wow. And had you
That was
graduated
still,
yet? You were still in
uh,
school.
yeah, we were all still high school kids. Nobody had graduated yet. People were hoping they were going to end up like some of us were trying to graduate from our public schools, or some of us were on our way to freedom. I think out of that batch, a few of my friends, like that school was a good. I ended up being a case manager later. That's later on. Yeah,
Freedom
I
saved a
never
lot of people.
that school. I mean, I met some of my best friends that went to
Mm,
that school. I used to go pick them up from there like a year because I was already
yeah.
graduated and I'd
Yeah.
off a day, and I'd say, let's hang out. Oh, okay. Well, I get out of school at noon or 1, and I go pick them up from
Yeah.
freedom. They were supposed to graduate with me. They were on the 5-year plan. We used to call it the
Yeah,
5-year plan.
exactly. The 5-year plan.
And I
But
go
those
pick
are
them up.
people
And,
that, like, sometimes you had no hope in public schools at all.
no,
And then freedom really
no.
empowered people to go back to believing in themselves and knowing they had potential instead of just
Well,
being
yeah. Now there's
ignored.
charter schools everywhere. That's the OG charter school. I think
Yeah,
back then it was a place called School on Wheels, which is here in the South Valley, which is still there, and then Freedom. Those were your two options.
that was it.
That was it back then. So it was either you better be smart enough to get your GED, or you're going to School on Wheels, or you're going to Freedom. And 9 times that, no, for my group of friends, it was always Freedom. I think my sister's friends ended up down here somewhere at School on Wheels. It's still there. I think my youngest niece went to School on Wheels. She still graduated, you know.
That's all that
That's the way.
matters.
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't have that option. Ray Senior was not going to have that. You know, you can go do your music thing and make all the noise you want. You're still graduating and you're still going to work this weekend.
Yeah, on time
That was your
with your
agreement.
class.
You can make your noise all you want, but you're going to school and you're working. That's what he called it, making noise.
Making noise.
Go make your noise anytime you want, but first, that's your third thing. You go to school and you work, and then you make your noise.
It's not
That's the
wrong.
way it was. But as long as I did the other two, he didn't care, which was cool. You know,
Very
that was
cool.
fair enough to me. Fair, it was a motivator for sure. Yeah, I wasn't. I don't think I was ready to run away just quite
No,
yet.
no. Where were you guys getting these shows at? Like, what venues
Wow,
at that point?
there were some cool places. So they had this place called Club Rec. I remember they talked about that. I think I only did a couple there, but they ended up moving a lot. Believe it or not, some of them were South Valley based. And in the war zone, Trumbull Community Center was a big one.
Okay.
Trumbull Community Center, and that was in the hood. Even then, it was the hood. It's
It's
now way the
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's known as the hood.
Back then
But
it
if
was
you're
the
from down
hood. Now I don't
here,
know what you'd call that.
yeah, but if you're from down here, it's just another venue. It's just
Yeah,
another group of people. You don't even think about it. You're just like, just stay close to your friends. You'll be all right. Mind your own business.
that's why I love it. That's why I love it.
But Roller West, which is a roller rink on Old Coors, they opened it up to show. There was a lot of great shows there. I played some really good ones there. And a lot of the community centers Joey used to book at. So we played this place called Los Padillas Community Center. If you're familiar with South Valley,
Okay. Okay.
and we played a show there where it ended up becoming a legendary show. Where the cops came and had guns and had us all against the fence. And
Damn.
yeah, they had like a whole unit of cops, and I had a gun to my head, face first, on the ground because I thought I slashed a cop's tire, which it wasn't me. I knew the guy who did, but it wasn't me because the
Yeah.
van we had our equipment in was very close to the cop's car that got somebody slashed a tire. Because cops used to have these mobile homes based out of these community centers or elementary schools back then, just to make sure nobody's trying to break in, or they'd always
Okay.
have one like officer, and they let him live there like as a permanent security guard. Yeah, so we ended up at one of those community centers, and I just remember I knew the guy did it. I'm not mentioning names. It was so long ago, but I still won't say it. And he's still my friend to this day. He lives in another. He doesn't live. He lives in I think North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's my age. We all have daughters that are older than we were then now. Like but yeah, so he thought it was hilarious, and I'm like, and he's doing it when we're putting our gear away because we had just finished playing, and we were the opening act. We still had Joey Abbins' band. They were called Defecation. They were, as a matter of fact, they were setting up to play when we were putting. And my friends just like we were drinking like cheap beer in the car, and he decided to pull out his little knife, and I'm just like, I'm getting out of here. I'm not gonna be like, I don't need to get in trouble for this crap. So I go back in, and I'm helping him with the equipment. I think I'm helping Fran with his cymbal stands. And I'm going, here I am, thinking everything's fine, like no. And I'm opening the door up to put the stuff in because I'm getting the equipment out for the next bands to play. And this cop's like, hold it, grabs me, and it's and he's a big Native American dude. And he's like, you slashed my tire. I said, sir, I just got through playing. I'm just putting equipment in here because I know when you goddamn punk slashed my tires. I still remember his voice and everything. And he grabbed me and slammed me face down into the asphalt where the parking lot was. Got on his radio, called back up. They got there fast. Went and grabbed everybody out of the community center, including the band that was traveling from the Bay Area. I think they're from San Francisco. I mean, these guys were older than us. These guys are like in their 30s, and they're playing. There's all these like 16, 17-year-old kids. They're there just to see a show. And here's me. I'm like probably 16 at the time, and I'm with a gun to my head. They had us against the wall. So that was like kind of the big, my very first punk rock moment where I saw what really can happen when you're a little different from everybody else. At that point I hadn't had that yet, where I had cops like harassing me and putting guns to my head and checking me. And that was my first experience with police.
Did you
And
know
some
it was
cops,
out there? Completely
well,
surprised
we knew
by
that
it.
the cop we knew there was that mobile home where the cop was there, and there was a cop car there. It was a Bernalillo County cop. And then once he went out there, and I guess he was probably keeping an eye on the show because there's people out there smoking. I mean, I'm sure we weren't being that careful because me and my friend Tom that I sat in the car with, we were drinking like cheap beer, sitting down in between bands. We had a couple before we played. In those days, we probably could only afford a 6-pack, maybe a 12. We were lucky. But we were in the car keeping it low. We weren't trying to attract attention. But some people don't care. Who knows what they saw? But the cop was monitoring it on the DL, I guess, or whatever. But he thought I'm the one who did it, and I told him, sir, I just played a gig. You can go ask him. My band's in there. We're trying to bring the rest of our equipment. So he goes, you know what? Better than that. Once my backup gets here, I'm going to bring all you motherfuckers out.
Which is a couple hundred kids and a couple
It
dozen
wasn't that
musicians.
many, but I would say about 70 to 80. Because I remember we didn't get a ton when we played because we were kind of the new band. But
Okay.
it is. Everybody shows up later.
Okay. All
Later
right.
on, we did better with the crowds. Then we were still kind of like a newer band. But.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, there definitely was kids there, like enough to fill that whole parking lot and all the chain link fence and have squads of
Damn.
cops checking
Eh,
us all out.
And he lined everybody up for what? A pocket knife?
They were looking for that. Well, I remember my friend, he must have tossed it because they didn't find anything on him either. And they didn't check the inside of the cars,
They're
I guess. As far as
pissed.
I know, they might have, but I didn't go through that. I was too busy kissing the asphalt at that time, so I didn't see that. I just remember them like calling us all a bunch of, the F word,
Yeah.
faggots, all that. The typical crap people call people when they want to insult you in the 80s. That's not
Yeah.
socially acceptable, but
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Oh, I like your earring, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what's this? Your mom doesn't know how to dress you better than, that kind of shit. Typical crap, but they probably were a
Yeah.
little bit surprised. I don't think there ever was like a punk show that deep in the South Valley. I mean, if there was, they would have been a little bit more, they seemed like they were in shock mode a little bit. Even the cops,
Really. But
they were just like, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
I just always wonder, like, because we know that the cops harassed everyone, but then you just can only imagine how frustrated they must have been with our
Well, I
generation.
had that happen after that, but it was like more like university area, downtown. I mean, I was already kind of after that. I was like broken in. I was like, oh, the cops again. What's up now? What,
Damn.
you guys don't have any beer or any weed on you? Toss it now. Like it was that kind of thing. But I mean, because I mean, by that point, I was like, okay, you kind of already knew that you were going to get some kind of problems.
But not before, not this one show. You're still young and naive on that show.
Yeah, I mean, there was a level of excitement because I was so guarded. I was just freshly kicked out of Catholic school. You didn't see cops like frisking and pulling out guns at Catholic school kids that were high financed kids that like you didn't see a lot of that. And it definitely was not in the South Valley. That's for sure.
I could see
Yeah.
where the whole thing would have been a shock to your system and their
I
system.
mean,
And it does,
there was a level of fear when you have a shotgun pushed up against the back of your
well,
head and neck.
dude, yeah. A pretty good level of fear, I would think.
But at the same time, I was like, man, they're bringing backup, and then I saw finally I was like able to twist my head, and I see all my friends, all the bands, and all the kids that went to the show all lined up against this big chain link fence, and they're literally like, I mean, like you see in the movies, like where their legs are spread, and they're doing multiple tricks. They made like 5 cop cars for a bunch of teenagers that were just dressed a little different.
Overreaction.
In the end, they left, and the show finished. We were able to. The last, I think, the middle band got cut off, and the last band still played. Then they just stayed. Two of the cops stayed and just made sure that we all left. I think the show still ended up happening. I don't remember them canceling the show. That was my first introduction to that whole thing, where the cops just they didn't get it.
It sounds really cool to me that you went straight to playing in the clubs. You weren't seeing a lot of shows before that. You
No, I
just
played
started
my
playing punk
first
rock.
21 and over. No, I played my first 21 and over at 17. I wasn't even old enough to be in the venue.
Are your band's just good? Your Joey
Ended up
Allen is
finding
good for promoting.
I think we got connections. I mean, I think we were, for 3-chord punk rock in that time period, if you listen to a lot of those records back then, it wasn't, it was very straightforward 3-chord stuff, and I think we were able to do that. And I had already been playing bass, and the very first band I played in was a little more technical because it was more like classic, like kind of like the beginnings of heavy metal. So it was a little bit. So I kind of learned playing. So I kind of already had a little bit of a feel for rhythm, and then I learned how to read music playing trumpet as a kid. So I kind of had a little bit of an aptitude, and the guys I played with, they were better than me. I was like the weak link, but I was okay at that. Are you okay?
Cool.
But I mean, we were okay. I mean, with time it got a lot better. But yeah.
So you just went straight to play in the clubs.
Yeah, a lot of all ages first, but we started to by the 90s it was full blown clubs. I was very into. I mean, I was doing that quite a bit.
Still the
Even
same
no
band?
matter. No, I played in a lot of different projects. That was like that particular band. Okay, so that band was what ended up becoming a band called Vulgar Issue, and then that band evolved with me singing with Dave Hernandez on guitar. My friend Tom went from guitar to bass, and then our bass player went to drums. Everybody did the only one that stayed singing was me. Everybody kind of played musical chairs with
That's
their
cool.
instruments. But it worked out better than any of the bands before. It just ended up being just a fit. And Dave Hernandez is such a good guitarist. Even then, we were all kids. And he was the guitarist, I was the vocalist. That band became a band called Blockhead. And that band was cool. That band got some good shows. That's when we started playing Roller West. And I think it was bands I'm trying to remember. I know it was at that time they were booking bands like the Adolescents, Vandals. We might have played with All. I know we did some like band with a band called Tyrannicide. They were kind of like a crossover metal punk band, but they were doing. There was a lot of shows. There was stuff that we weren't involved in that I would just go watch too. But Joey Avon was trying to book a lot of cool late '80s gigs at Roller West, and then that kind of fizzled out. I don't know if they didn't want us there anymore or whatever. But then it started kind of evolving into downtown, and then everybody was getting older. So eventually, all that scene were old enough to get it in the clubs. I think Joey eventually went on a year or two after that.
I think you must have been very good musicians to be getting to play these shows in these clubs long before you were even out of high school. I think there must have been some
I'd
talent
like to
there.
think we were. I mean, when you're that age, you obviously, you think you are. I never let my head get that big. I always thought I was very lucky to play with really good musicians. Like playing with Dave Hernandez was always cool because I knew he was good from band in middle school. I mean, the guy he was a very natural musician. And, being that he was kind of like that sibling rivalry, even though we weren't brothers, I would be like, I'm going to have to step up my game with this guy, and he was cool about it because he wasn't like, he was just like, whatever, okay, come on, but he was that guy I had to like, and he was just my friend at the time, but I was like, I'm going to have to step up. And then even with my friend Tom, he was pretty gifted. And then when I started playing, which became Blockhead, those guys were all pretty accomplished. And by that point, I had like 3 years in, and I was pretty confident at that time. But, the singer's even to this day, the singer always gets that stereotype. They're just a singer.
Like just the
Okay,
singer.
well, yeah, but it's physical. And,
No kidding.
but people, a lot of musicians, they just think, it's all about, how, to me, I laugh at it because to me, go ahead, sing then.
Yeah,
I'm not trying
exactly.
to be a guitarist, like, so if you want to sing, it's that, no big deal. Here you go, man. Here's the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And they never want to.
No, it takes a lot of bravery to sing, not to mention all the talent that you need.
It's just a lot of air. It's physical, and we're thinking about punk rock. We're not, you're singing you're not singing pop music. You're singing at a
No.
tempo that's a lot faster than most people, like,
Yes.
and you have to have decent lung power. That's one of the things I've been lucky as I do have a strong set of lungs, and I never was a cigarette smoker, so that probably helps.
Okay.
But I grew up around a lot of it, so I never did it. But
Good for you.
yeah, I don't think I would have been able to do it. But
Probably not, actually.
yeah,
That's probably a really good point.
yeah. And my parents both were smokers. My older sister didn't live in the house anymore, but she was a big smoker, like everybody but me, pretty much. I mean, I dabbled in it to be cool when I was like 15, but it always made me feel sick, and I hated the smell because my parents always did it. So I was just like, yeah, I don't need that.
Just inherently knew not to do it so you could make
Yeah, and
music someday.
and at that time I didn't think that way, but I'm glad it ended up going that route. Like I didn't think of it like that, but I'm glad it went that way.
I think there's a distinct possibility that kind of worked out in your favor.
Yeah, but I'm saying those guys were really good musicians. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was lucky my whole to this
Mm-hmm.
day. I've been blessed with playing with really good musicians and being able to get the right people together. If I ever had like my biggest strength isn't necessarily my vocals. It's I'm such a music fan, and I indulge in so many different types of music. So that's kind of like my thing is just finding good people and putting them together. I think that comes to do with being a music fan, and I'm kind of that guy I'll bring people that have never met together to a band practice and say, hey, let's see what we can come up with. Like I did
That's
that.
cool.
That's probably like half of my music life is doing that. More probably. Like yeah.
And you guys are switching up instruments. That's a great way to challenge yourself as musicians. Even if you went back to the original instrument, you'd be that much better by the
Yeah,
time you had done something.
yeah. It was interesting. Once I got into singing, I was kind of like I had a bass still, and I would mess around with it for musical ideas at home, and then I
Mm-hmm.
may grab one of the guys' basses and say, "Hey, this is the idea I have. Check it out." And I played
Okay.
the basic parts, and they made it sound like 10 times better. But they got the notes I was trying to get out.
Okay.
So a lot, back in those days, like, we were young enough. The guys were still cool enough to let me like do that. Like once in a while, like depending on what band I was in, some guys just I can figure it out. I've just seen so much like grandstanding over the years with people that are just they don't like taking any kind of everybody thinks they know better. But it's funny. I never was like that. I always was open, but some people just are. I'm not saying everyone, but
Most
I've ran
people
into a
are.
lot of that. Oh, I've ran into a lot of that where it's just like, oh, I can figure it out. I'm like, how do you know you can figure it out if I'm not playing it for you because I'm not reading out the notes?
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
like, people
Yeah.
are just like that. They're very protectful of their instrument.
Well, as a musician, you've probably had to work now as a team with a lot of different people and a lot of different dynamics.
Oh yeah, and then on that time you're still not mature, and there was a lot of you'd have your once in a while your disagreements and your infighting and the talking behind each other's backs because this person thinks they know better and I started this and I was into this before him. It was a joke, we're kids still. We're not even like drinking age. I mean, now I look back and laugh at it. At the time. Even then, I was just kind of like, whatever. It
That
was
is
just
kind of
pure, like,
funny.
yeah, but I mean, I kind of always knew it was more for fun.
Hmm.
Like, I did this for fun. None of us were making real money from it. We did it because we wanted to do it. First of all, punk rock doesn't make you any money anyway, unless you're like Green Day or somebody.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're lucky you can. And these are the bigger bands. So you're lucky you can pay your rent and your bills.
Well, and the
You're
whole
not getting.
inspiration behind punk rock is
It's supposed
DIY,
to be,
living,
yeah,
yeah,
and that's one
poorly
thing.
crawling from town to town.
Totally. And then I took a break after that. Not really. I the whole punk thing kind of while I just thought, man, I kind of wanted to experience something that seemed a little more. I know this sounds so dumb, and like a lot of my friends are going to laugh, but that's the only word I can use. I wanted to witness what it would be like to do something a little more professional.
Hmm.
Professionally ran more. I'm not talking about like musicians. I'm talking about more like where it's more organized, where
Okay.
people aren't just like, well, look it, I'm not showing up to practice today. I'm too hungover.
Okay.
And that was the kind of stuff you dealt with when you're late teens, early 20s in punk bands.
You wanted to go to the next level.
I wanted to try. I was just curious. I never thought I was like. I just said if I could do. I wanted to see what it was like. I
Okay.
didn't think I was like. I'm just going to walk into this smooth situation. I knew it was just something to try. And I started doing like kind of like playing like more like it was kind of like. And this is pre-alternative rock. So I was like in bands that kind of were like Pixies-ish kind of stuff. And I really started trying to really sing. And that's really kind of like trying to do that stuff is really where I learned how to really sing and do melodies. And I know that sounds
Really?
funny. And we didn't sound just like the Pixies. I'm just using that because that was one of those bands. I think it was like them, the big bands then before the whole alternative rock thing blew up was like them and maybe Jane's Addiction and stuff like that. And like, I mean, I always liked like Adam and the Ants and some of that new wave stuff. I love
Okay.
Bauhaus. And that was before that, but I always thought, well, these guys actually. And I grew up listening to David Bowie, and I'm like, I have that tone in my voice, I could do that. And I loved Iggy Pop,
Cool.
and
Yeah. Cool.
and of course my favorite, like as I got older, and to this day is probably my still favorite as far as like it's probably still like the Ramones, and that's I know a lot of people say that, but I mean that's just one of those bands I never get tired of. I mean I won't play them every day, but yeah,
Isn't
but
that funny?
yeah, I
Because you
mean
just don't get tired of them.
no, I mean, they have so many albums. You can always like flip flop them and then take a break and start over. And a lot of people see the Ramones, they never sold a lot of records. And
They
people
just
are like
changed
now
the
they're these
sound.
legends. I only saw them one time, and that was in Santa Fe, and when I was 19, I think. So that would have been 8 years.
Really?
And
Really?
it was like a festival. They were just one of the bands. It was a Deborah Harry. It wasn't Blondie, but it was Deborah Harry's solo.
Okay.
The Ramones, and do you remember the Tom Tom Club?
Oh, yeah.
It was some of the members of I think Talking Heads, but it was almost like pop. I know with boys like bit it, bit 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 it. It was like pop. It wasn't even like, and it was the CBGB's something that was like a CBGB's theme tour, and it was like bringing
Okay.
back that
That's cool.
at this place called Apollo Solari, which no longer has shows in
Huh.
Santa Fe.
Huh.
That was the only time I ever saw them, and I was just like, oh my god. After that, I went out and bought everything. Yeah,
And
but
this is 91. When did you decide to take a break and try other stuff? What year was that?
so that would have been late 90, 91, and then I did that kind of music where I dabbled in it. I would say probably till 94, and
Okay.
then I started kind of like I need to start doing some punk again because it's so much funner. It's people are like now shows are getting bigger now. I had been going to shows still, even though I really wasn't singing punk anymore. Like I had seen Bad Religion and SNFU, and I was still going to shows here and there. So I never stopped liking it, but I wanted to try something
Just
else.
try some. Yeah, for
Yeah, that's all
sure.
it was. And I've always been like that. So as the story goes on, you'll notice I've always tried to challenge myself as a vocalist. We haven't even got to that yet.
Okay.
But but I always knew punk was like that's that energy and that youthful spirit is that's who I am, and it's funny. I've always came back to that on 3 different times. Even
Really?
now, at my age now, I've returned back to that style of music again.
Just
It's
who you
just
are.
that it makes you feel good. It's high energy, and it makes you. It really does make you feel younger.
I was gonna say keeps you young.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of like a perpetual adolescent anyway. Unfortunately, like just even though I'm responsible, I've already raised a daughter and all that. Like, I still like all the same crap. Just last year I just bought me a new BMX bike. I bought me another longboard last year. I still buy vinyl like pretty often. I still like to go to like events like that. I still like to watch like the X Games. I mean, I would never try to do those tricks. I mean, I've already been through the ringer. I have arthritis. I have some joint issues. I'm a cancer survivor, but I
My.
still like that culture. I still love that
I love
culture.
it. I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, so no, I took a big win, and then so by like '95, I said, you know what, I'm gonna take. I met this guy, and he had this rundown little. So okay, I used to go to a lot of shows at the Golden West in the '90s, and I saw probably one of my first punk rock riots there, like real ones, and that was the
Um,
Battalion of Saints, and that was the early '90s. I don't know if you remember hearing about that one. Steve
I
was
remember the
there,
show when
and I told
something
Tommy was
bad
probably there
happened.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
it was.
was. Yeah.
I think it was started by some
Yeah.
Nazis. I think. I wasn't involved in it. I was just ended up in the mix of it. I was actually there like on a
Damn.
date at the time, I think,
Oh
and I
no.
ended up getting caught up. Yeah, that's not a good way to here. Just come. I want to take you to a show. You might watch out for the cue balls.
Welcome to my life. This is what we
No, I mean,
do.
yeah. It was one of those things that I
Was it
remember.
bad? Did people get really hurt?
I mean, it was bad enough. People got hurt. There was blood involved. Steve Island, man, I wish he would have brought that up because I know he was in the mix of it a bit. I mean, he wasn't one of the catalysts, or he just was there probably defending his friends or whatever. But we were all involved. I got involved, and I wasn't even there for that. I wasn't hanging out with anyone in particular at that time. I knew people, but I was kind of at that point out of that for a while, and kind of just starting to go to shows again. And I had went to a lot of them, and that's what was pulling me back into that whole scene again.
Oh, because you've been seeing some shows lately.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
was like, man, this stuff's like happening
Yeah.
again. Like,
Yeah.
and I was a little older now, and I had got more experience under my belt. I'm like, so that was cool. And there was a huge, really rich Albuquerque music scene back then. I know people think now Albuquerque's so great. Like, no offense, man, but it's just a drop in the bucket to how good it was.
Really?
I mean, there's
Just
some good bands. I'm not saying there's not good
compare
bands.
based on the availability of the different types of
The
music and
variety, the
that many
variety.
bands. Really?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
could see a band every night of the week. It wasn't just on Saturday, Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, and Sunday,
Yeah.
and it wasn't the same old bands. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, that's interesting because now you have all the venues, but you don't have as many bands.
that's true. And the Golden West was my favorite spot, and it sucked because right when I had been going there a couple of years, that was just my spot.
That
Pre-Launchpad.
was what was the Golden West? That's in my head. I know what it is.
The Golden West is now
I'm like
called
scared
Inside
to.
Out. It's called Inside Out now.
It's just one of the bars downtown.
Yeah, it was right in between. At that time, it was Time Out, which was like a sports bar,
Okay.
and then the El Rey. So right in between the El Rey.
So it was just always there. The Golden West, it was called.
And it was like an old school saloon. Like it looked like from the old
Yeah.
West. I loved that place.
Yeah.
It had a
Yeah.
good vibe, and it was a little
Okay.
divey, but cool enough.
Okay.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? And then bringing right there on Route 66, I'm like, this is my place.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I finally was starting to be like really enjoyed going to shows. I mean, I was young in those days. I'd get out of school or work and then go watch a show, get 4 hours of sleep, and then go to work the next morning because I didn't want to miss a show. And
What
everybody
work were
played
you
there.
doing?
Back in those days, everybody played. I mean, it was like the Drags. You had Flake, who later became the Shins. Scared of Chaka had started coming out then. They had done some shows there. They were still in their early days. The Elephant was a big one. Word Salad. All those resin bands. Big Damn Crazy Weight. And then you had like, there were so many. Fractured. Psychodrama, who became the Eyeliners. They were there. There was a ton. And not all of them were punk. It was just that whole kind of indie kind of thing. Punk mixed with everything else.
At the
At the
Golden
Golden
West.
Yeah, and I think that
Yeah.
that particular venue is, I wouldn't say single-handed, but I would say if you were to talk to Joe Anderson, who still promotes her, that was probably, he was a bartender then, and he's now this promoter. He is the go-to promoter in Albuquerque now. And I met Joe, and he was a bartender. He was still booking shows here and there. Joey Abbott was still kind of the guy, but he was kind of slowly getting out of it. And then Joe Anderson started, and he was kind of that connection. He was bartending there, and then he would book shows.
That's what I remember, because all of the, like, that was an extended period of time. That's the first time anybody's brought that venue up in a while.
Oh
Because
man,
I
the Golden
remember
West, I
that.
think, was very,
Yeah.
very, very important to that whole. I mean, there was so many. There was bands that broke out of that place that ended up getting on like big labels and breaking out of Albuquerque.
This
You
is
know,
the
I mean, telling.
90s, right?
Yeah,
Mid,
and it's
mid.
interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, I'm just questioning. Tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was basically throughout the '90s. So I think they ended up, they didn't want it to be an underground bar. So I think Joe, they ended up making the last, like, even though they stayed open as the Golden West for a few years after, and then eventually it burnt down partially and they had to remodel it. That's a whole other story. But prior to that, like, they said we're going to have the last gold. I still have the T-shirt with all the bands on it. I didn't do that show. I just got to hang out and watch them.
Really?
So they had this last show where it was like all day and like all the cool Albuquerque bands, and I still have the shirt. It has like Jaws, and there's a guitar and it's basically saying this is the end, because it was such a good era.
Yeah.
Not that the Golden West closed, but they were getting rid of us. Well, that's
That's
what the
what I
vibe I got.
remember from the 90s, though. Coming home and seeing shows there.
Yeah, and I don't know all the logistics or what the whole thing was. I just know that they didn't close, but we were all out of there. You know what I mean?
Did they move? Is that when they moved you guys to Time Out or Launchpad or
Well,
Beyond
Time Out,
Ordinary? How
yeah.
did that go?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Timeout Joe started kind of like doing shows through them. So that's where I kind of started doing shows. I found this little dive bar on the west side. It was called the Pony Bar. It was like catty corner to a strip club and this like
Yeah, isn't the Pony Bar
Mexican
like
dance
kind of
bar.
famous on the west side?
I don't know how famous it was. It was a little dive. I mean,
Yeah, like a
it was
famous
something.
dive.
I mean, it became a cool situation because, see, when the Golden West shut down, all those cool bands, a lot of them didn't have other avenues unless they got this bigger gig somewhere. Because the
Okay.
Golden West, that was like the
That
epicenter of that Albuquerque scene, that
for that.
underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think anybody that was there would agree with that. If you would, like Josh would have probably agreed with that. Josh Gibson,
Yeah.
Tommy, I know they would all agree. I mean,
I
everybody
think
played
we've
there.
all took it for granted. I hadn't even thought about it. But for like at least 5 years, that's where we did everything, wasn't it?
Easy. It was depressing. I remember I was so bummed because, I mean, I saw everybody. I saw Fear play there. I mean, you name it. Teen Generate, the New Bomb Turks, the Joy Killer, which was ex-TSOL, that was Jack's band. Beowulf. There were so many. I have flyers. I mean, I could go on and on, but I saw a ton of really good shows there. And I wasn't playing there. I was just going, hanging out.
Just go, yeah.
Yeah, just to check them out. And then when I heard they were closed, I started becoming buddies with Joe. He was a bartender, and I got to know him. And I told him, hey man, I'm starting a band. I know you promote shows here and there. And he was like, yeah, we're getting ready to close this. And I was like, well, I know this guy that owns this little dive bar on the west side, but he's giving me 2 to 3 nights a week to book shows there. How do you feel about doing this with me? You have the connections, but I have access to the venue, and I don't mind helping. And I'll provide a PA. I were using my
So
personal
great.
PA. Like I let everybody use it. Everybody sang out of that thing, and
Good for you.
that's where everybody ended up playing. I remember we had the grand opening show, and a lot of the same bands that played that Golden West show, the Drags played there. Word Salad, Scared of Chaka. I had my little band at the time that kind of just squeezed ourselves, and there we were nobodies. It ended up becoming the band that was probably my most popular punk band I ever played in, which ended up becoming Smug. But
Smart.
yeah, that was the band that kind of, I really got all my real experience as far as like, you know, what it was to make records and go on the road, that kind of stuff. Yeah, but yeah. So I finagled my way into that. I'm like, well, if I can like provide a venue, maybe I can like get a band together and play some of these cool shows with these cool
Brilliant.
bands. And that was my plan.
Brilliant.
That was my plan. I was
Yeah.
like, these guys don't care about me. I was like in the '80s. They were like, this dude had like a 1 year stint with it. You know, I knew people, but I wasn't playing in an active punk band. I had been playing this other kind of music that was totally removed from that crowd. Not totally, but kind of.
You just backdoored it.
Yeah, I was playing at. Do you remember Beyond Ordinary?
Yeah.
I played a bunch of shows there, and that was prior, and that's when I was starting to go to a lot of Golden and the Dingo Bar. I was going to a
Yeah.
lot of shows there. I saw a lot of cool shows at the Dingo Bar too. I saw Greg Ginn, who's the guitarist from Black Flag. I saw his solo project there. I saw a lot, like Agent Orange. I played there a ton once I was in Smug, like a ton, with a lot of everybody played there. I mean,
It was
I even
fun.
met I even met which I didn't know who he was at the time until somebody told me who he was, and he was kind of a quiet guy. I met remember Siba Motto? I met John Lennon's youngest son, Yoko and Johnson. What's his name again? It was his band, Siba Motto or something, and he was standing next to me at the bar, and I remember I just told him, "Oh, you guys playing tonight?" Because I had seen him on the stage, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna check out the show." And he goes, "Oh, cool, stick around, it should be good." So what's his name? Not Julian. That's the oldest son. So back in 95, 96, I was trying to get back involved with that Albuquerque scene that was so good from the Golden West with all those great bands. I thought the only way I could do it is maybe offer them a place to play and give him my PA and invite everybody, because I did have a lot of friends still there. And it worked, and we did some really cool things it was called the Pony Bar. I think I told you, like, it was this adjacent, like, hole in the wall dive bar with a stripper club and some weird dance hall. But it brought everybody out. Everybody was all about it, because everybody needed a place to play.
You're a facilitator. You made it happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was doing it because I have such a love for the bands, but I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of get my way in there too, because it had been a while, and I had done it way before, but I was kind of like starting fresh, completely
That's
open.
perfect.
And I was
I'm
like, well, if I
impressed.
can like host this stuff, maybe I can get. If you're booking the show, there's no way your own band can't play, right?
Exactly. I think it's perfect. I'm a firm believer in working your way in through the back door.
So, and I did that 100%, and it worked because So anyway,
There you
that
are.
band that I was in, so that club lasted for a while. And a lot of those bands started breaking up. Some were moving to the Pacific Northwest. Not everybody was, but some were just kind of like keeping it low. That place was notorious, like, for just having cans of Budweiser and mixed drinks. And I think they were used to downtown, or you had the gin and tonic in the glass and all that. But I was like, well, this is a real punk rock bar, man. Drink the can of Budweiser.
I want to
I mean,
say I've heard of the Pony Bar like way back when out on the west side because I
yeah.
listened to men talk, and if I remember correctly, back in the day, people would talk about the Pony Bar across from the strip club on the west side.
A lot of those people that play there, like, made it out of this town. And not that it was
Really?
bad for it.
No, but they like went on to be musicians.
Well known. Um, the Scarachaka guys, the Shin guys, the Drags. Blind Nine played there. I mean, everybody did. There was a lot of national attention. The Crumbs, we had Aggression, the original Aggression from California, a lot of Aggression from California. That brought out everybody. That was Halloween night, I think, one night. And
Awesome, right? Good for
everybody
you.
played that night. It was like a 6 hour show or something. It was crazy. And for punk rock, 6 hours is pretty long.
It's hard, physically demanding.
Well, it just, who has the attention span for that many
Yeah.
bands? Like, but it was
Yeah.
Halloween, and it was funny because we talk about being from New Mexico. You know who was at that show? It was just hilarious. So next door, I told you there was this like dance kind of Mexican bar. Al
Okay.
Hurricane, who was like a New Mexico kind of legend for like northern New Mexico music. He wore the patch on his eye. He ended up hanging out there because he would take breaks because he did sets next door. And he didn't. He hung out. Everybody talked. He was nice. I mean, he wasn't like in the pit or anything, but he was hanging out with his cocktail, just watching, leaning, just hanging out. And then he'd look and he'd leave and go do his set. But he came back. But I remember he was there that particular night. It was so New Mexico. You want to talk about New Mexico? When Al Hurricane goes to a punk rock show,
The
crazy.
lines have been crossed.
And it happened more than once. But he was
Really?
cool. I think he
I
just liked
bet.
music.
Yes.
Yeah, and he never judged. Everybody would go up to him, Al Hurricane, because everybody knew who he was. He had a very iconic look with the patch, and he always wore the like mariachi suit. But he had fans even from that scene, and he was so respectful, and he'd smile and talk to him, and then he'd go do his whatever set next door. But that's what that place was, you know.
That's what Albuquerque is too. That's a really good example. Just mixing it up.
Now it's a Home Depot, I think, or a giant gas station. Yeah, that place is long gone now. I
But
mean, it
that's so
was.
cool that you brought everybody out to the west side. And then did you take you a while to find your groove of musicians, or did you know what you wanted to do?
No, so the band I was trying to get my foot in the door with. So the guitarist, his name is Bobby Baca. He's this well accomplished flamenco guitar player, and I was already friends with Dave, who introduced me to a lot of people, and Mike Bobroff, who I'm sure you've heard from some stories. He was like the guy that drove everybody on tour, and he had a lot of connections in California, and not just there, but he became we became friends. I'd give him rides to his job, and we'd talk, and he'd say, "Hey Ray, I got this band. Can you do that?" Everybody wanted that place to succeed.
Oh, that's so great.
I'd get hit up for shows all the time. I mean, and I was working a lot then because I was working in psych hospitals at that time and a juvenile residential treatment program. So I was like, I mean, I wasn't sleeping a lot for that year and a half or whatever it was. Like, and
Full
at that time, I
commitment to
was like
music.
housing bands. I was housing bands that would come from out of town, and I'd host them, and they could crash on my
Sleep,
floor or on my couch.
yeah, sleep
So I
on the
did that whole
couch.
thing
It
too.
was your
Yeah.
house.
And they were allowed, and they were all very cool people. And some of those bands were great. I mean, I can name a bunch of them. Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, FYP, like you name it. Pinhead Gunpowder. I mean, at that time, there was a lot. Youth Brigade. I mean, there was a lot of people that stayed at my place. And we would just hang after the show. They'd want to shower, and we'd have pizza, or I'd grill outside. And this is probably 3 in the morning at that time. Or I mean, it even got like as punk rock as eating canned corned beef out of a can because we were too drunk to make any food. And it was like, here's a piece of white bread and some mustard. Just scoop that up; it'll be all right.
That is
I mean,
very punk rock.
and it was, and that I still remember that.
Good
But it was so
days.
much fun. And all those guys were so grateful and never had one problem. I had
Really?
some friends of mine from Japan stay there, and they didn't speak very good English, but they were just like the most super grateful and hilarious. They could speak enough English to make you laugh, and they would do their little. They were hilarious. I mean, they were. I mean, that band was called Electric Summer,
They're a
and
band,
they
like a
were
Japanese punk band
yes,
from
and they were
Japan.
awesome from Japan. They
And
were
they used to
foreign
just,
exchange students that lived in Denver because they were going to
okay,
college. They played in a
cool.
punk band, and they were on a label out of Boulder,
Well, that's
Colorado.
cool.
And I knew that guy because I had booked some of his bands, and I met him with one of the bands he booked prior. It's just an ongoing spider web. And those guys ended up being my friends, and like their later records, they thanked me on there and put my name. And there was bands like the Teen Idols who were like Fat Records, so they were like a pop punk band, and
Hmm.
they were pretty popular. Like one of the bigger pop punk bands, they were like affiliated with Screeching Weasel and all that stuff. And they stayed at my house a couple times, and I was on their last record, one of their last records, second to last. And they thanked me, and those guys just stayed at my house. We hung out. I
It's
tried to,
very
I
punk.
knew it. Well, when you go out of town, you're happy if somebody is hospitable enough for you. You go to it, because you don't make a lot of money, and you need gas, food. And by that point, you probably need a shower, or you're ready to kill one of your bandmates or somebody, because you're just with them all the time.
So did you like
So
go on
that's where
tour in a van with a bunch of smelly punk rockers all around the country?
I had friends that did it a hell of a lot more than I did, but I
Really?
know what it's like. I have friends that did it way more than me, and and
Oh boy.
and they still stayed friends, which is interesting. They might not have talked for like 6 months after the tour ended between records or whatever, but
They still stayed friends.
I won't mention names, but they know who they are, and I'm sure a couple of them will be seeing this. But yeah, it's just it's just like anybody you would in close quarters with
But
anybody,
yeah,
women or
anybody.
and you're
Right,
smelling
right.
each other's feet, and you're dealing with
Yeah,
their same
yeah,
horrible jokes,
yeah,
or
yeah.
you're just like, all right, I'm sick of you. Can we like pull over now before I like beat your ass, or just not be your friend for the rest of my life?
Especially in a small place. I mean, you could live in a 5,000 square foot house and get sick of each other. A bunch of guys in a van or something would, it's cool that you all came home alive.
Well, it's funny because being in a band's like family anyway, but who argues the most? Family. and
Yeah.
then you're in close quarters in the heat with body odor. You're not eating good. You haven't slept.
Where did you go?
Well, I did like a West Coast thing. I did some random cities throughout the U.S. With different people though. It wasn't always the same.
That's cool.
I, I even did roadie work. Smug, we did some cool stuff. None of the above. My other band after that that band went through some incarnations. We did some cool out of town shows. So there were tours, and some of them were longer than others, but I got to do some cool stuff. Thanks
Is it
to
cool?
Jay from Scared Chaka, Mike Bobroff, who helped with a lot of that, you know,
And you
driving
just
and just.
had great venues in Albuquerque, so you almost didn't have to travel as much. There's places for
We
you
were
to play.
spoiled in Albuquerque, though. I was spoiled here. You go from Smug when we were at our height, we were making $200 for a half-hour gig,
And didn't have to
and
go anywhere.
all the free drinks you wanted to going to like say a place like I'm gonna mention it because I just didn't like that place. We would do like 2 week gigs in California, whether it's San Diego or LA. You go play a place like Bar Deluxe, they want to give you like $20 and think you're okay with it. When I have a lot of friends in LA and family that showed up to that,
You
and they
brought
want,
people
and they're
there.
like, oh, and then at the end of the night, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like $20. Because but you're spoiled though. You're used to doing that same set in your hometown for a couple hundred, if not more, and you're selling records. We sold records there too. We brought people. So when you do a week there, so some of the kids from other shows were traveling because they liked us to go see us. I just remember that particular bar. They were called Bar, right off of Hollywood Boulevard, and they were just like the biggest douchebags you'd ever meet. Well, you should be happy you're playing here. I said, first of all, you're just a dive punk bar. You're not the Whiskey a Go Go. You're not the Roxy. And even I wouldn't even do that for them. So, and I remember like I got into this argument, and the guy was just like being a jerk. And my friends were from LA that booked that show, and they were cool. They were called the B Movie Rats. So I was like, oh. And it just started building up. We were starting to load out. We had finally loaded up. I asked the one more time to make it right, and he said no. I grabbed 2 bottles of top shelf liquor, shoved my way through the front door where the doorman was. He was too big and fat to catch me. And I said, well, we're going to get away with something because they just burned us
Yeah.
over that. And
I've
even my
heard.
LA friends were like, go, do it. They didn't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
They weren't
yeah,
accused of it.
yeah. Other
But
people
yeah, I
on this
remember that.
podcast,
That was a moment. I'm sorry.
no, other people on this podcast have talked about how good the producers and the people were in Albuquerque, how you always knew you were going to get paid in Albuquerque.
Well,
You
the
always knew you were
promoters,
going to get,
yeah, like, oh yeah.
yeah, what's not like that other places,
No,
but
it was,
Albuquerque,
when you're local, it's very fair.
mhm,
They have to make a little bit of money too, but I think they took the same hit the musicians did, if not more sometimes. You know what I mean?
probably.
Like, I give a promoter, like here, like, I have nothing negative to say about any of those guys. I
And
never
that's got to
felt
be a
burned.
big deal in music.
Oh, but you start going to like places that think that they have some entitlement. It's just totally different. It's funny at that one show, the biggest memories is we got burned and Tori Spelling was there hanging out with her friends, and that was in her height of 902. And
That's
I
so
was
funny.
and I had enough beer in me to go say hello. And you know what? She was pretty nice.
Really?
And those are the only 2 memories I had. Other than that, it was just like, it was a good show. There was a lot of people that I musicians from California there, but I was just like, it just set like a bad taste in my mouth that for it to turn out that well, that they wanted to give these guys that
20
from out of
bucks.
town. That when we put on a good show, we brought enough energy to deserve a little more than that. Well,
And you
20
stayed
bucks
there
and a couple
more
of
than
top
one
level
night?
bottles.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
was a good
Thank you.
turnout. There was members of the Blasters there. Like I said, it was. A little more underground. Like I think the reason, like say someone like a Tori Spelling would be there. It's off the grid for her. She's not hanging out these
Yeah,
ritzy.
for sure.
She's gonna go hang out with her friends and have some drinks, and nobody's gonna bother her. As a matter of fact, when I met her, I said I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to say hi, and she was a sweetheart. She wasn't this diva. I just said nice to meet you. She was sweet. She smiled, and that was it.
Isn't that funny? Like, if I wanted to be treated like a normal person, I'd go to a punk show. Nobody's
I don't
special
even think
here.
she was really watching the show. She was partying. She was hanging with her friends. But I
Yeah.
think it was a way for her to go out, get out, and not be bothered.
Yeah.
And I remember Mike Bobber was like, don't be bugging her, man. Don't make us look like fools. And I'm just like, fuck that. I'm going to at least
Yeah.
say, like, I
Oh,
have
that's a
nothing
pretty
else to
girl.
do.
You should go say hi.
And that's all it was a high. I did sit there and like, hey, because I really wasn't even that big of a fan of that show.
No.
I
But
knew who
that's
she
like,
was.
yeah, that's like a pretty girl for your generation.
She was a very thin girl. At that time, she had dyed her hair red. She was no longer the blonde. And if you see those shows from that time period, like late 70s, early 98, 97, 98, she had red hair. And it's
Yeah,
so
she
funny
did.
because I remember watching one of the episodes and I was telling my girlfriend at the time, that's exactly the hair color she had when I met. She was like this offset that night or whatever. I was like, and she was like, oh, there's no redhead girl. The Tori Spelling's not a redhead. I said, yes, she is.
She was for
And
a
they didn't believe
while.
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
watch
for
the
a
show,
couple
but
of
I
seasons,
remember that.
but yeah, but I just remember I was like being like, Tori Spelling is not a redhead. I'm like, dude, she's probably shooting the next season. Just give it a break.
You're like, I saw her. I know I did.
Well, I mean, she has a distinct look,
Well, very much so.
So and she was polite. I can't say one
Nice.
thing bad.
Nice.
But anyway, so that was that show. But that's an
Okay.
example of how you
Okay.
can leave your hometown where you're spoiled and get treated like absolute shit. Or you can go to like somewhere like Lawrence, Kansas and play a house party with the band that's hosting you.
Yeah,
And their
because
parents
they
invite you
appreciate
to
you.
their house and they feed you and they take donations from everyone and you walk away with $300 and you're fed and you sleep good and they give you the directions to the next place. You know what I mean? There's these differences.
There are, and they're all around America. You don't know which one you're going to get.
No, no, no. I mean, and that's the way it is, I guess. I mean, it's a hard lesson because you just think, whoa, I'm big in Albuquerque. Well, I don't know what big is, but I get my friends. I can feel like I can get three-quarters of the launch pad full. I almost sold out our CD release. Then you go somewhere else and there's like 10 people. Like, you can't think like that. You just be happy you're out of town and you can.
Yeah. It's not about the destination, just the journey.
No, but I'm sure a lot of my friends' bands had much better situations.
It's probably good times and bad times. Again, you didn't die in a tour bus accident or an overdose. I think you guys did great.
No, no, it was none of us were drug users. Not in my
Did
band.
music save you from that? Because your musicians kind of kept you out of trouble.
We drank a lot of beer. That was about it. None of us were drug users. We definitely didn't do the hard stuff. No, I mean, I know I didn't. We were just like guys. And we were happy, it was very all American. You have a
Punk
few
rock.
beers. Yeah, it wasn't like. I know there was a lot of my friends that were doing hard drugs. I think I was oblivious to that from my background. And I never judged anybody. Like, I
No.
don't care. Like, it's just my personal story. I never got into that.
Yeah, I would guess that you wanted to play music. Anytime you have a hobby or project or something that you're working on tends to make you want to stay clean and sober and put all of
Yeah,
your
plus I had a
effort into
job to
that.
come home to that drug
Yeah.
tested.
Yeah, so it's like again, your parents, they were strict, but
Yeah, I was even afraid to smoke a joint
no
because
kidding.
I had to get drug tested
No
maybe when I
kidding.
got back.
For that behavioral health job.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them drug tested. I mean,
Sure.
I was pretty good at not getting into any liability issues because I was pretty good about being aware of safety. But in those places, there was any kind of safety concern with your administrators, piss test
They
immediately.
test you. Oh,
Send them to the labs, and you had to go on the spot. You weren't gonna wait and go on your own. You're leaving your shift when you're on the clock, and you're gonna have somebody with you, and you go into a bathroom. I mean, I never had that. I mean, I had it, but it
no,
was just
but that was the,
it wasn't
yeah,
because I was in trouble. You know,
that's
I
just
went
the
through some.
standard procedure if something had happened.
Yeah, a lot of liability when you're working with people, especially, and that was considered the medical field, still is.
Well, it's the 80s or it's the 90s, right? So our country's still reeling from the 70s when they literally had people locked in institutions.
Yeah, and that was a whole other. So the post Smug Band was none of the above. We played a lot of great shows. We went through a lot of different members, um, and and we stopped for a while because we ended up having to replace the original guitarist who just passed away last year. But the thing that was sad is he was the guy that formed that group with me.
Oh, so
Yeah,
he's family at this point.
it's just a sad situation, but I mean, we kept the same sound. And Brandon, who ended up playing with me later, and Roadside Memorial played with us for a while. And that band was a revolving group of members, but it was always fun, and we always got great shows. None of the above. Yeah, the band had lasted a long time.
Really? How long did it last?
From fall of like '99 to like sometime in 2009 or something.
That's a
But it was
long
always
time.
very, I wouldn't say like off and on, because, but I started dabbling in other kinds of music too. But it had our breaks, but it was, we'd always still find a way to do a show together or rehearse or whatever. But like, yeah, and we continued to write songs and stuff. It just, yeah, in the end, I ended up being the only one left out of the original,
Yeah. The
which
last
is
man standing.
okay, because that was the one that
Absolutely.
wanted. That's the reason I called the band None of the Above. I wanted to be like, I wanted to name the band Zero, but there was already a band called the Zeros. And then I
None of the
found out
above.
later, which is weird because I knew who they were. There was an NOTA hardcore band from Texas, but it was nothing like us at all. And the concept was not like us. It was, we were like just like not wanting to have a name. You know, it wasn't like, but it was a fun time. I mean, there's some history there for sure. And then after that, kind of like dabbled in some hard rock and metal, but we don't have to talk about that because this isn't a hard rock and metal podcast.
Hey,
But that
hey,
lasted. That lasted for a while.
I like hard rock and metal just fine.
Well, I made 3 records out of it.
Really?
Which, yeah, yeah. So that was cool.
It's
And
like really heavy metal, death metal,
the first
thrash
band
metal.
was more like Black Sabbath-y kind of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of and that was another band I put together myself.
Just
And
metal, like Black Sabbath.
um, it was more heavy rock to me personally.
Okay.
Because to
Okay.
me, what I did with the next band was metal. I mean, it was like an extreme
Really?
fast, guttural vocals. I didn't see in the band before that, which was called Skulder, and I sang. Once I got into Fallen Prophets, there was no clean vocals. It was all guttural and banshee
Yeah.
screaming type stuff, you know.
So hard.
I did that for a long time, 9 years or
Is
something.
it fun? Hard to
Yeah,
do,
I
but
mean, it
like
was fun,
just fun.
and you know, I grew up listening to that kind of music, but for me, it was like challenging. Can I do that vocally?
Yeah.
And then once I kind of proved it, and I realized there's too many politics and metal in this town, and it became not fun. And
Okay.
then like some of the and we went through a lot, the pandemic,
Oh
and it was the
no.
same lineup for 9 years. So it wasn't like
Really?
a revolve. Yeah, it wasn't an evolving member of band members.
That that was
That
a
wasn't a
core
revolving.
group.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it had some because we were Matt, the drummer, and I were trying to find who we were going to play with. But for 9 years solid, it was the same guys, and we did a
Were you,
lot of cool metal shows, like with bigger bands, which was cool.
were you writing your own songs still this whole time?
All originals. We didn't even do any covers. No covers. I'm not a big cover guy.
How many songs have you written now, Ray? Is there like a number?
I've never even thought about it.
That's cool. That's cool. It just comes to you.
I mean, I think if you think about it too much, you just go. You just keep. It just keeps going. You know. I never even thought about that. But I'm not always the sole songwriter. I write with collaborators.
Absolutely.
Mostly the guitar players,
Okay.
because they have an idea, then I try to sing off of that, and then the drummer will come in and we'll work out the timing, and then the melodies, and then the bridge, the chorus. You know, it all has to come together. But when you have good people, it isn't. It's not a forced effort. You know, like it just comes. Yeah.
It's art. It's not work anymore. It's just art.
Yeah, you know, and then I did that for 9 years, and then I decided, man, I'm itching to do some punk rock again. The whole metal thing had kind of ran its course with me. Not that
Okay.
I don't like it or love it or appreciate it.
It was
I
just
didn't
time for
sound
you to
like
move on
I,
again.
I did it. I proved, okay, I did it. I went through that whole, and it was kind of an uphill battle, to be honest with you.
Really?
Well, there was like 100 metal bands, and some of them weren't even that great, but they had the connections.
And there's just a lot of them. It's just a metal town.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I didn't think anybody really accepted me as a metal singer. They were like, "That's
hmm,
Rick. He was an old punk guy," but
huh.
I was like more than adequate to sing metal vocals.
Sure.
More than adequate, you know. Like, and
Albuquerque
I'm
is
not
just
saying that
music
to.
snobs. We're just music snobs. Everybody's
No,
got an
no. I mean, when
opinion.
you work hard enough, you kind of figure it out.
Yeah, but everyone that listens, like everyone in Albuquerque is so spoiled. We have been exposed to so much great music that we
Some of it
all
became, to be honest with you, some of that stuff became a joke
really.
because some of these bands that were getting all these shows didn't even have an actual record out or didn't even want to invest in their record, like their music,
They
but
just
they were
had the
getting all these shows,
connections.
and they were all mostly like death metal, and that was, and I don't get me wrong, that's cool music. I did some of that too, But it was always the same, and I noticed by the time I was done with it, everything started to sound the same.
Is that just the draw in Albuquerque? Just have people
No,
that
because the
love,
people that go see it are great people.
yeah.
I've met so many really cool people, and I'm still friends with to this day. But I think it's
We have
just
a
that sound,
huge loyal, yeah, that sound is incredibly popular in New Mexico.
and that's cool for like 5 to 6 years. But after 9 years, you're just like,
Okay,
I can actually
okay.
sing. I don't have to do that all the time. And I
It's
know some
okay.
people
It's a
that
good,
that's their only way to do it, and not me. I didn't.
really.
I felt like I wasn't
You're
going to
like,
be pigeonholed forever in that.
you're actually sing capable of some other things.
And I like that stuff.
That's
I'm not
great.
no disrespect to that
No, I
at
think it's
all.
great that you keep challenging yourself as a musician. Uh,
Well, I'm only a singer, like you have to do what you can. So if you can sing a little bit of my next thing is going to be like soul and Motown. That's going to be my. I mean, I'm not
wow.
even close to being that good, but I wish I could. But I'm definitely gonna.
Super fun to practice though. Like,
Oh, that's what
that's
I grew up with in
cool.
80. That's what as a kid. That's what I grew up with. Way
Because
before
that's
my
what your
hard
parents
rock or
liked.
metal. Remember, I
Yeah.
told you in the beginning of the interview with
Yeah.
AM oldies. That's what I started with. But
Well,
I would
and a
love to be
lot of
able to.
that music is based on the vocals. Like,
Yeah, that's why I'm not that good at it. It's real singing, and you have to have. And I could do some of it. I've done okay with butchered some karaoke with it and did it okay. And at home, like I've done it just on my own. I'm like, that wasn't too bad. But then again, it's just me where I don't have to like kill somebody's ears or whatever. I can try it like 6 times in a row to try to get it right. But I would like to record an EP of that one day, and I just might, because I just want to. Another thing I want to see if I can do.
well,
That's
I
what.
would guess you spend another 5 or 10 years in that type of music. You'll be good at that
Hopefully, it
one
won't be
too.
that long. Maybe like 2 years. Like I don't want
What
to.
if it works out great and you're the next, like, perfect voice for that
I'm not going to be
genre?
Marvin Gaye, that's for sure. Smokey Robinson. As much as I would love that to happen, it's just not. Like,
Okay, that's fair.
it doesn't help that I'm like this, like Spanish, Irish, Italian guy. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
but
no
but no,
Tony
I
Bennett.
love that stuff. I would like to just record something, even if it's just a little something,
It
just to
is
have it
cool
on
music.
record.
It is really cool music. And
Yeah,
what a
and the
great
thing is,
challenge for you.
and believe it or not, there's a lot of bands. Well, I don't know about bands, but musicians that can play that here.
Really.
I don't know if they're gonna have some punk rock dude. They're gonna be like, "What do you show me?" Which because they're probably older guys, older than me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're probably all accomplished musicians that learned how to read music their whole life. But that's why
You're gonna
you got to step up your game once in a while.
That's great. You're gonna go find them too. You're gonna like go patrolling the clubs of the like senior citizen.
No, they're
Uh,
all like at the casinos nowadays.
oh, that's
I
oh yeah. Okay, but that's cool because that's a really cool sound.
Yeah, I just went and saw the Spinners at Route 66 this past weekend,
Okay.
and there's only like one original member, but they were such great showmen, and they did just a few hits of the Spinners, and then they did this cool like extended Motown medley. And even though it wasn't them, they did it so well. I was like, see, man,
Yeah,
it can be done. And
it can be
they
done.
packed the whole venue. It
Well,
was
that's
sold out.
cool.
The
That's
only
cool because
original wasn't even a singer; it was the keyboard player. And I'm like, if this guys can sell out a room like this, and it's just one guy, and he's not even a singer. But the guys, you could tell, were very. They paid homage to the original band. The
that's
lead,
really cool.
yeah, and I think a couple of those guys are related to the. I mean, the last original singer I think passed away this past year.
Well, that kind of music, I mean, that was from another generation. So to see it like
Yeah,
preserved or make a comeback is kind of exciting.
I mean that wasn't even my generation.
No.
Those guys were already done by the time I was still in elementary. I mean, I might have caught the very end of some of it as before I even got to school.
Well, it's another genre of music with a fascinating history. Like just the music history of all of that is very cool.
Oh, I read books about it. I mean, and I've collected the music, and yeah, it's. I mean, that kind of music is kind of like what I grew up on. But
I had that too. You were talking about your parents listening to jazz. My
that
stepdad
was my
was a little
dad.
older than my
Yeah.
he was a little older than my mom, went to the Korean War, was really liking jazz. It was always about the jazz or like the Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, that was my dad too, and he liked a
Really?
lot of he liked that stuff, and he also liked the big band stuff, like Glenn Miller and all that
Y-
stuff. My dad was a
Yes.
pretty he had a good sense of music, even though he wasn't a musician himself. He came
But he
from a
probably could have been or should have been. Oh, there's more in the family.
no, that's just who he was. But my dad used to have an old Victrola that, and then I think he grew up in my grandmother's house, and he said that thing ruined his ears. Remember, they used to crank him up.
Yeah.
And he said that thing wasn't even with the. And he saw all the stuff I was singing. He's like, "Your hearing is gonna be ruined." And I'm like, and he's like, "That Victrola ruined my hearing." I said, "No, Dad, you were in construction. It was the power drills
Yeah.
and all
It's
that crap. I don't think it was the old Victrola." I told him.
we're like it may ruin my ears, but my lungs still work great because I don't smoke.
I don't even think my hearing's. I mean, that bad considering. I mean, for as old as I am and how long I've been doing it, I, I'm not using any headset and I can hear you fine. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
which for a musician you would think you'd just be darn near deaf at this point.
no, I've been. I guess that's. I should count myself lucky. I don't want to be too confident because who knows.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky like that.
Take care of the ears and the voice.
I used to try to use ear protection, but there was always something missing. And as a singer, you got to hear everything. And I couldn't do it. I tried. It just didn't work. And
Just didn't
luckily,
feel
I guess.
right.
Yeah, and I don't even. I mean, I have a little tinnitus, like the ringing, but it's not all the time.
Hmm.
And it's at weird times when it's actually quiet. I'll get a little beep, and then it'll go away. But it's not all day long. Like it's not
Oh
like
God.
Pete Townsend or those guys. Like,
Some people it's really bad.
yeah, I
Mhm.
have a little, but it's not that bad.
Okay, good. Do you have musician friends that or people that you've worked with that you kind of carry around to these different projects with you? Somebody,
I mean, lately it's a little different, but I mean, uh, Matt Chavis, the drummer I played with up until the last few months, he was the guy who was the metal drummer for 9 years. And when the kind of like the I don't know how you want to call it, the splitting of that last band, he decided he wanted to stay with him, and that's okay. He came from that. Those guys wanted to go more horns, which in ska and all that stuff, and that's
okay.
fine. I just didn't want to do that every song. And but I have those
Well,
songs recorded, and they will be on a record that's coming out of Europe, so I'm happy.
well, and it seems like I'm getting the impression it's your personality. You're gonna go try something new now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that thing is if it doesn't work out, you're not gonna sit there and cry in your beer over it. You just keep going, and I'm out. It's always like this in my head. Okay, well, let's try this and this. And I even try to do some. I play with different people all the time, and I enjoy playing with new and different people. Like you get
Is
new
everyone
ideas.
like that? Do our musicians usually like that? They
Some,
like,
yeah, I mean, I believe some are. A lot are. I mean, as a
mhm.
singer, I think some singers. I mean, I don't know. I know I like to do that because as a vocalist, it's new and interesting territory every time I do it.
Mhm.
So I enjoy it.
Hmm.
You know, like you get to play and you make new friends, or you become stronger friends with people, and you want to, and then you just do something else.
You just get better.
Yeah, and I'm older now, and it has to be fun for me and creative. If it starts getting to where it's stressing me out or where I'm not happy, I'm just not gonna take part. Nor should anyone.
No, no.
But that's
There's
my
enough.
story up until now, though.
Okay, that's it.
To
Oh,
be
up until
continued.
now. To be
Well, there's
continued
there's
after
stuff coming up.
Motown. Sorry, say that
That
again.
and I've been working on some punk stuff too, but I'm trying to work on finding a guitar player I can work with, which I've had a couple that, but we'll see. It has to click. If it don't click,
You know what you're doing. You'll make it work.
I'm hoping.
It's fine.
I always hope I know what I'm doing. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what.
We're playing music and you're expanding your horizons and learning and challenging yourself. That's probably what makes you successful. So you don't just sit back and do the same songs over and over again.
I mean, I guess everybody has a different term for successful. I guess if you wanted to say about branching out in different music, the people liking it, that's successful. But if you want to talk about financial success, I never quit my day job. So But no, I enjoy it. I mean, it's something I love to do. And if I can't have fun doing it, and there's no point in doing it. And right now, I'm still having fun. I'm still loving listening to music every day. I mean, so it's not over yet. You know,
I wouldn't think so. I think
no,
you're on a
I'm
roll.
I'm too stubborn to quit. Let's just put it
Good
that
for
way.
you. That's great. That's just what I want to hear. Keep doing it.
Yeah, well,
That's how good music gets made. Tenacious personalities.
that could be good and not so good in other ways. But
Well, I wouldn't want to be your mom.
she kind of at this point is just like, bah, you know, like she's older, and you know, and I mean, I'm too old for her to tell me what to do anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's like more than 30 years ago, where she doesn't even try to express the music to her. She's just like, you know, with the last band I was in, like I was gigging a lot, and she would be like, "How was the show? How was the show?" So she's accepted it, you know. And I played her the last record, and she liked it because she likes horn, and she
Well,
liked. And
no.
I was trying to croon a little bit on that record, a little bit. It wasn't just screaming the whole time, and she really liked that. Yeah.
Well, and you're obviously not a devil worshiper at this point. Like nothing really bad has come of you wearing
No,
those
I put my
t-shirts.
dagger and my skin cat away. I'm no longer doing that. I'm not wiping. No, I never was. It's hilarious, man. Like I mean, the thing is when I think when you like a certain type of music, back in those days, you were just automatic.
You were just automatically that. And we judged each other based on what kind of music.
For God's sake, back in the day, people that listened to Motley Crue were Satanists. And that band was about as far as Satanist as you can get, man. Those guys dressed like,
Yes.
you know, like, you know, like, I'm just like, what? I remember I
Or
used
the
to hear that even when I
Twisted
was young. I'm like,
Sister. I mean, you
they
just
were
have to have.
too, but those guys were like all kind of normal guys that just put on makeup.
That's what I'm saying too.
I
Like,
don't even think those guys were partiers at all. They were like straight.
just it shocks me. And I always wondered what our children would do that was so shocking. And it's right along the same lines. It's none of it's a big deal. It's all about how it's reacted to.
I don't think much would like kind of like frighten me that much anymore. I think I'm kind of like past that.
Not much is
My
gonna top that.
my daughter,
Well,
she's so cool. She likes a lot of the stuff I like. Like she's a good. Her first concert I ever took her was Black Sabbath on their final tour. She's
ooh,
seen
good
Kiss,
dad.
but she's also seen the Descendants. She's also
Good dad.
so she's pretty well versed in music, but she also likes pop. And she likes Selena. I mean, she's kind of pretty balanced.
It's we all should be. Everyone should have appreciation for the different talents available.
She likes like the old like stuff we're talking about, the Motown stuff. She loves that. My
I
mom
like that
plays that
stuff
on her
too.
car radio, and my daughter knows so many of the songs, and I'm like, where'd you learn that on the radio?
Grandma music.
She knows it better than my mom does. I
Oh,
think
that's
my mom
funny.
just has it on for background noise or something.
That's funny. That's good music, though. I really like that music. Now I'm gonna go watch me some Motown documentaries.
Yeah. What do you have a favorite? I'd go Smokey Robin and the
Yeah,
Miracles, maybe some Marvin
yeah,
Gaye.
yeah.
Do you want to hear some ladies, some Supremes?
Gosh, I just love the history. Like I go to my parents and I'm like, was so and so part, like was Dionne Warwick one of the Supremes, or was Aretha Franklin? I
You
can't
know, there
remember.
was just as much drama and that type of music as there
Yeah,
ever was in any rock or metal band. Everybody
and
thought, oh, those rock guys are crazy. There was as much
no, oh my God.
addiction,
Well, think of
violence, dysfunctional
Ike and
behavior.
Tina, Ike and Tina Turner. I mean,
And we didn't know about that until we saw the movie like in the 90s. We heard, that movie freaked me out. And it was all real. It was endorsed by Tina Turner.
no, it was very real. And my mom was a big Tina Turner fan and she knew all of it. And she didn't know it, but people kind of knew it. And when the movie came out, that was a big deal. That was like,
My favorite scene in that
changed
movie is when
things.
in the limousine where she actually kicked his ass for the first time, and they
Can you
walk into the
imagine?
hotel and they're both limping and they're all bloody. I mean, it's not funny, but it kind
No.
of you could tell she held it in to the. I mean,
Well,
she messed him. She got hers in that one, and I
you
was like,
know,
get
Tina
him,
Turner
Tina.
would just kick your ass too. Like that lady
And
is
she was in
so
better shape
strong.
than him. If you ever look at Angelica, she had muscles. She was in shape.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
Like,
that's the actors. But like, Tina Turner herself looked great all the time too. Like, she
well, they
wasn't.
always talked about her legs. Like that lady had leg muscles that all the women wanted. They were always like, I wish I had legs like Tina Turner.
Yeah, she had a hell of a voice too, man.
Really, really amazing. Uh,
Yeah, another one of those ones from back in the day. You know. Yeah, I love that kind of music so much. Like now that the older that I get, the more I want to hear that kind of stuff than I do anything else. But I'll never stop listening to the stuff I like. But like if I want to just clean house or go water the garden or just hang out outside, I'm gonna listen to like Philly soul or Motown or classic
isn't that
R&B
funny?
or
Because
like
we
those
never,
lowrider compilations that have all those underground like I love that stuff. Like
that is
you
so
know,
cool. Because so much of this we never would have listened to when we were younger. Like I went through 5 years of all I was going to do was listen to new wave. Like I had
I
never
love a new
listened,
wave.
yeah, I'd never listened to Duran Duran in my life. And then I was like, okay, it's time.
Yeah, I went through, not that I didn't remember them when they were out, but I went through a little Duran Duran phase after hanging out with my friend Leo because he did a tattoo and he was busting out some of that really early Duran Duran. I'm like, dude, what's this? He's like, dude, it's the first Duran Duran record. And I went home and dug it out and I listened to that for like a week straight. And I'm like,
Me too. I was like, wow,
and
this
it's
is really
dark.
good.
It's not like this like new wave was. It was kind of dark,
It
and
was kind of dark.
everybody thinks of Duran Duran like the Reflex. That's like the hits. They had some really good like deep
There's
cuts.
there's some other stuff in there, yeah. I think it's so
Yeah.
fun to try to listen to music now that I didn't bother to listen to before. Cool. And now
When I was
because
growing up, I didn't know any better, so I just absorbed as much as I could of everything.
everything,
So yeah,
everything,
and now that I've gotten older,
everything.
I kind of returned to that. Which is great.
You do seem like a sponge. You seem like a guy who soaks up a lot of information and then figures out how to make it work.
I don't know if that. It's part of my ADHD. I don't know what it is, but like my daughter even tells me, "Why are you trying to sing that?" I don't know, but give me a minute. I'm gonna knock it out. Even if it's this one song, and she just shakes her head and laughs at me. Like I did that with Adam Ant one time. I've done that with I think a Bauhaus, like it, the Cure. I've done that. The Smiths. Like I was like, I'm gonna do this. Just give me one song. I'm gonna get it all the way through.
You should do some covers because you don't do covers, but I bet there's a few that would be really cool to hear.
I would have to really, really pick through, and it wouldn't be like covers anybody would expect me to do. I don't want to do something
No,
that's Ray would do that. I want something that's totally off the cuff. Which would be something like that, The Cure, The Smiths, or some weird random. Because nobody expects me to do that. They expect me to scream or whatever. And I've done
no. So
plenty of
now
that.
when you start singing Marvin Gaye, they'll be like,
Yeah,
"That's
let's
great."
get it on. I mean, I'll never be that good, but I probably could pull it off. You
I
know,
bet you'll do it. Let's check back in a year or less and see how you're doing.
you're gonna give me like a project. So we're
Yeah,
gonna come back and regroup at this. You know what? That's actually goals work.
do really? Okay, so 1 year from now, we check in and see how your excursion into the world of Motown is working out for you.
It, okay, so is it just Motown, or you want a couple of
Uh,
other?
yeah, all of it. I'm not very articulate when it comes to naming all the different genres of music, so just call it whatever you want and get back to us in a year and let us know how it's
Okay,
going.
it's good because if I don't have a goal, I get kind of bored. So that's good to know.
Well, it'd be cool too if you're like, yeah, that sucked. That didn't work out at all. I'm gonna go back to punk rock or something. Like,
I
it's
think I'm
always,
gonna probably be doing punk rock anyway, but I mean,
you
just
just
because
can't
I've been
not.
having a lot of fun doing it again. Like the last
Yeah,
couple of years have been so much fun. Like I'm not
keeps you
ready to
young.
leave that at all. Yeah, I'm not ready to leave that,
No,
but I still like to mix it up. I
you
mean,
should. I think that's really good for you.
you got some Damned here.
Okay,
Uh, you got a little bit of Outcast, so a little bit of classic hip hop. You got some Robert Johnson, some Delta blues here,
a little
and
bit of
that's just
everything.
yeah. You got some hardcore SSD Control, some Boston early '80s hardcore going there. Yeah, it's all over the place. You want some? You want some of the stuff we're talking about? There's some Intruders. That's some good. Philly soul right there. Like a little bit of everything.
That's what I like about doing this because now this is all being recorded. I don't have to write it down. I can just go back later and be like, what were these bands that Ray told me to listen to?
I've been talking enough. You probably will have to go here.
Because people, I always think it's so funny. Just growing up around Albuquerque, you always heard people talking about stuff that it didn't make sense. Why do they keep talking about Jerry's Kids or Cracks in the Sidewalk or
Well, okay,
Elephant
that's
or
another band.
something?
So Jerry's Kids. So that's
Yeah.
Gordy was the
Okay.
guitarist for Jerry's Kids, and then he went on to form
Okay.
Crack. And that's a whole other story because those were one of the first local bands I ever played with when I started. But there's just so
Okay,
much we
so
couldn't
give us that
fit
one in
everything in.
1 minute or less. What do you know about Jerry's Kids and Cracks in the Sidewalk?
Oh man, my favorite punk rock singer ever in Albuquerque was Dave Duran. He was the godfather of Albuquerque punk vocals. Jerry's Kids were the first, as far as I know. Somebody could correct me, but as far as I know, he was the first Albuquerque punk rock vocalist. And he moved to the Bay Area. He's back now. I saw him last summer. Talked to him, took some pictures with him. Still a cool dude. Um, he's old. We're all older now. And then Gordy was the guitarist amongst a couple of the other guys. I mean, and all those guys. But so, like I said, they were a little before my time. Dave Duran moved to the Bay Area, and he was in a band called Clown Alley with Shirley Temple's daughter, and they did this more like kind of punk metal thing called Clown Alley. Great, great band. I think they did one record, and then he formed another band called Eyeball. They came here, and that's when I first met him, and that was in '88. And I'm still like Dave Duran. He was like a god to me. He's just Albuquerque's first punk singer, and I was a punk singer then. I'm like, and I told him, just like, yeah, here, have a Budweiser, kid, and walked away. He gives me like this farm Budweiser. Oh, cool, man. Here's your record. Give me
Thanks.
my $2. Gives me a warm. No, he was cool, but I mean, he was there to have a good time. He had
Yes.
returned challenge. But I mean, that was my first memory of him. I'm just like, oh, it's Dave Duran. And he's just like, rad. He has all this like beer covered in him. And it was right after he finished drinking. He's like, here, have a Budweiser, kid. Nice to meet you. And he took off. But it was still like a nice moment. When I met him later, he had no recollection of it at all. Because but yeah.
And you
So
get to
and
play,
Gordy
you should
was
open
one
for
of the
them
guitars.
later.
I never opened for him. I wish they were a little before me.
Mm-mm. They're a
Yeah,
little
so I
before
wasn't
you.
old enough to play with Dave Duran. I did with Cracks in the Sidewalk, though, which is Gordy's band, and he was in
Okay.
Jerry. And I played with him several
Okay.
times in the '80s and '90s.
Okay. Who Cracks in the Sidewalk was who?
That was Judd was the singer. Jazz was the bass player. I don't know if you remember. She was a female bass player. She's a cool lady. It was Gordy, and then they went through a couple of drummers. But those are the ones I knew because those are the ones that would hang out. And we were kids, and they were
Okay.
already like well into their 20s at that time. I think a couple of them had already graduated college. Like we were cool with it. And we played part. So we played with them. Like, I remember meeting them in the mid to late '80s, and even playing with them all the way to the mid '90s. Because I think they broke up and reformed, and it was the same people, and we all remembered each other, except I was like 16, 17 when I first met him, to like being 25, 26 later on. I have pictures. I have like Polaroid photos. But yeah, so that's who I played with, was them, and that was Gordy's band. And Gordy went on to do some good stuff later. More like, it's funny, he did some of that stuff like that doom stoner rock thing. He was in Black Maria, and I think Gordy has some health stuff going on now, but the guy's like an Albuquerque legend, and he's still around.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his name comes up almost every episode.
Well, Gordy's like a legend here, man.
Yeah.
And he never left Albuquerque, so that's probably why nobody ever forgot him. Yeah, I mean, he might have, but
Okay.
I'd always end up seeing him at a coffee house or random places throughout the years, and we just say, "Hey, what's up?" Yeah, but he was.
Well,
So those guys were like the big brothers for me anyway. I was just
and then you
happy to
just
be
kind of
happy.
got to inherit their scene.
Yeah, they were a little different. Cracks on the Sidewalk was more like, I mean, I may be wrong, but it reminded me more of like, and I may be totally wrong, like Black Flag meets like kind of like what's that band? Like Thurston Moore's band. They're very experimental. They tune their guitars differently. I'm drawing a
Hmm.
blank because I'm a little bit tired right now.
I
Sonic
know. Yeah.
Sonic Youth. That's what they kind of
Oh,
remind
okay.
me. That's what they kind of that's what they reminded me of. They maybe be like, "You're way off, Ray," but that's to me kind of that vibe I
That's
got.
what you heard.
It just, I mean,
Okay.
just the way that the Gordy, like the way they tuned guitars and the tempos, it was more like progressive. It wasn't standard 3 chord punk. They were like doing different things. They were like a little bit more bizarre sounding, a little bit more thought provoking musically, you know.
Well,
And there
that's
was no like,
cool.
yeah, and that's what I got from them. I may be way off, but that's what I.
That's what you heard. Any other great Albuquerque bands we should mention before we're
I
done?
think we mentioned a lot. I mean, there's a ton, but
Yeah. Who
yeah,
paved
I
the
think we
way?
mentioned
It
them
was,
earlier. I think we mentioned them earlier, but I mean, if
we've been
when
through
you
a
go through the
lot.
editing process, if you want to take 5 minutes, I'll throw some more together.
Okay. I really is the list of bands is one of my underlying reasons for doing this podcast because I'm like, oh, you said to listen to this and this.
Well, there are quite a bit, you know, there and a lot of good ones, and like I said, a lot of them came late '80s and '90s. Now there's
Yeah,
some, but it's like few
yeah.
and far between compared to that time. And it's not because I'm some grumpy old man. It's just not. Like
No, that
I encourage my
no.
daughter to blow my mind with a band one day, just so I can say, check this out,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But it's just it's a different era, you know.
It was a very historical time period. I mean,
It was,
metal
and it
was
was real, and it was
turning into
dangerous.
yeah.
It was
Oh
dangerous.
yeah, that's it
It
was
wasn't just punk
dangerous.
rock. I mean, it was you didn't, you know, all these kids have blue and green and red hair. Back then, you wore red or green hair, you're getting a fight, or you're gonna definitely get some like heckling and all that. And I, you know, or even if you had a weird haircut or a shaved head, I had a little bit of everything.
Well, it
You
wasn't
know,
much better for the guys with long hair.
no, they weren't. But at least the long hair had been around since the '60s, so people kind of tolerated it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh,
but
you're
they were
this
just
weird.
freaking
Like, but
out
it's
on pink and
yeah, but you see these kids now, and they're like crazy shade, like purple, like, and that's. I mean, it's cool because I think, oh man, they're like kind of we were, but they're not dealing with that
yeah.
type of
Nope,
scrutiny or whatever you want to call it. They weren't
nope,
victimized. They're like just the cool
nope.
kid, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Like we got our asses beat so you could have pink hair.
Yeah, or you had to like learn how to fight more than one guy, you know.
Yeah, it
But
was dangerous.
and I wonder why a lot of the old skin dudes, the old sharp guys, they were mean guys, but they probably got shit. They probably learned to have. The funny thing is, like back in the day, and this is a funny story. Before we like, whenever you're ready to stop. So
Okay,
I
okay.
remember I was
No.
all I wasn't like hey I wasn't like part of any particular group. Like I had a lot of sharp friends, like skinheads that weren't racist.
Hmm.
I had a lot of punk rock friends from the music stuff, and we all attended the same shows, and you became friendly with them because you'd go to parties with them, or they'd throw a party and you'd play their house, and a lot of them lived together. And then it was funny, like you'd be hanging out with them, just going to the frontier to go get like a cinnamon roll or a breakfast burrito, like at 1 or 2 in the morning, just walking because everything was in the university area, the student ghetto, you know.
Yeah,
And this was back in the day. We're talking
yeah.
when I was still a teenager. Not much has changed. Those houses haven't got any better looking. I don't know how many windows have been replaced, but like
A
I remember
lot.
me. But I remember these like frat guys would like throw beer bottles or like call us names, whatever. And you're talking about some of these big, angry dudes that I just happened to be going and grabbing a early breakfast with or whatever you want to do. I'm just, you know, hanging
You're
out.
like, just want a breakfast burrito.
No, but I mean, they weren't asking for it either. I mean, they probably were ready
Yeah.
for it, but they weren't asking for it. And I just remember this one time we were around the frontier. Some of us had our skateboards, some of us were just walking. And of course, some of those guys were wearing their flight jackets and their shaved heads. Some of us were just hanging out. But we all were like kind of a little bunch of friends. So these like frat guys start like throwing shit at us and heckling us, and they're wearing polo shirts, and you could tell they're well financed. I don't know what you want to call it. They definitely
Hmm.
had, and they're like all
Hmm.
packed in cars, like trying to start crap. Hey sissies, hey you fucking freaks, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, here we go. And I knew these guys didn't have a lot of patience, and I'm hanging out. They're just ready, like, come around
Just
again,
yeah,
motherfucker. And I get pulled once in a while into situations like that. Where
yeah.
we're all in this together, and we'd end up getting a fight with these frat boys. I don't think we ever lost one of those.
No.
No, and I remember we'd send them home all beat up and stuff. And I'm not just saying that, but those same frat boys would hire like the punk bands to play their frat parties at their fraternity houses, pay us, give us free beer, and be totally cool with us after that. Like they never there was never any grudges. It wasn't like gangs where they're like, "I'll get you back later."
No, we're just fighting.
It was a bunch of guys just being dumb. Like it reminded me of high
Just
school. Kind
fighting.
of shit. Like guys just get act dumb when they drink, and then they get in a fight, and then they forget about it. And I remember those same guys. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that was asked me to play, well, was me and my friend of the band that I was playing with at the time. He's one of the same guys we fought with, and he was just like, "Hey man, what's up?" He didn't even hold a grudge, and I'm sure I looked pretty much the same. I was still a kid, 17,
Yeah,
18.
it's so funny.
And we
It's
go
just
and
what
play the
men
frat
do.
party, and he's like, "Dude, here's your cups for you guys. You get as much as you want. We have our own keg here, so you don't even have to go where the rest of the party is at. You can come and get it from ours." Paid us a couple $100. Thanks, guys. We'll keep in touch. Maybe we'll do another one. There was never any, and they were cool.
No,
And it's just ironic. There was how much how ironic
it
it was,
is. It's just ironic.
and it happened more than once,
It's
which is even more weird. But
it's
yeah,
like you
it
don't know
happened
if
in the
they liked
'90s
your
too.
music. They
Well, I
respected
think I
you.
think
Maybe you
people
were
I
just
think
the only band they knew how to contact.
well, like those guys are cool. They got in a fight, man. They probably all right.
Yeah.
You know? And you know what the funny thing was? They were super cool. Yeah, like we
Yeah.
thought they were douchebags. They probably thought we were too. But it was a business. We're playing. We're the entertainers. They're the hosts, and that's it.
Yeah. Was this Nerd House days?
This was Sigma Chi fraternity house specifically, and I played that same fraternity
Okay.
house twice. There's some history with me in that place because when I
Really?
was working with at-risk youth, I was working a teen shelter that was really close by, where I'd have to go in the middle of the night because I worked grave shift to go get the teenage girls out of there before they got date raped. And those guys were cool. They were just like, "Oh
Wow.
shit, we didn't know they were that young. Take them out of here, bro." I mean, there was something about that particular house, Sigma Chi. And I mean, it's a long time ago, but I mean, but I just remember that there was a history with me in and out of that house throughout the years, but it's all, but
I you got your
I think when you're
tentacles
from
all over
Albuquerque,
that
you
city.
just only have so many circles you can go through. When you do it for your music and your job, that's when it gets weird. I'm not here playing a gig. I may get jumped by three frat boys taking these teenage girls out of here but they were cool. I just told them straight up. I'm like, dude, they're with me. I'm their staff, and I would tell them. And this is like a whole other
That's
group of guys.
cool.
Well, I just told them. I mean, unless you want CYFD to come over here and investigate your party. Oh no, bro, just take them out of here.
No.
No, we'll go get them for
Yeah.
you. And they told them,
These are
and they would get their beer cups and pour it and say, "You guys told us you guys were 19." And there'd be like 15, 16-year-old girl. They didn't, it
not that I
never got
didn't do
that
it, but it
far. They were
sounds
just there
worse
partying.
now.
I
Yeah.
don't think those guys wanted
No,
to
it's
lose their
cool that you
house. Yeah. So it wasn't that. I mean,
no.
you hear all those stories about date rape and all that. I think those guys were like a little more cautious maybe. They weren't in their vans or out in the
Yeah.
community. They were at the place where they lived. So,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
definitely weren't gonna like stop them from coming in and having beer and who knows what night
No.
out. I caught it early
Yeah.
enough.
Come dance on the tables if you want, young lady.
No, they went over there and chewed him out. This guy's over here looking for you. You told us you were 19. And they were
Good
like
for
cool. They
them.
were like, "This guy, you're lucky. This guy's looking out for you because there's some creeps around here." And it was probably one of the creeps that said that to him.
Probably.
You know what? But it was
Probably.
okay.
Yeah.
It, there was
That's how
no
they do
incident.
it.
I got him out of there and took him back to the house. That was it.
Good
But
for
I remember
you.
that, and I was like thinking to myself, man, just a few years back, wasn't I like doing a Halloween party where I dressed like a new waiver chick? Because I wanted to piss off because they hired us at one of the shows when I was in Smug, and I'm like, I'm gonna dress in drag. Fuck these guys, like because they're so macho or whatever. They didn't care.
Just to keep them awake.
It was
No, they
Halloween.
didn't
Everybody
care.
they really didn't.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted to see if they would say something. I had this horrible, like tight,
And they didn't
checkered
even
'80s
notice.
dress. No, I mean they they obviously paid us at the end of the night, but they didn't tell me anything. They were just like,
No. That's why
I
they
mean, they
hired
probably,
you.
yeah. I mean, at that point, I'm there to do a job. I guess they couldn't really say much, but I did that on purpose just to see if I could get a little bit of shit from them. It didn't happen, but I tried. Like,
Good
and that's a true
try.
story.
Good
It was
try
a true
poking the
story.
bear.
If that wouldn't have been Halloween, I don't know if I would have got away with it. Even my band members were just looking at me like laughing, shaking their heads when we're playing. They're just like, eh. I'm like, what? It's Halloween.
It's really like Steve Island said, a lot of the early punks were just drama kids.
Yeah. And stirring the pot as
Some
often as
sort
they
of
could.
correlation, but
Well,
okay.
he probably was in it way at a different time where they was really controversial. When I got to that point, it was a little bit more flexible, or at least I think it was. Maybe it wasn't, but if he
He
was
just
doing
didn't
that,
care.
no, he was a big guy too. What were they going to tell him? The guy was a big guy.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
would
he
have
can do whatever the
grabbed
hell
one
he
of them
wants.
and picked him up and suplexed him or something. They're not going to tell Steve Island. You can dress like they're not going to tell him anything. He's like three of those
Nope.
guys is at that time especially. I remember we were talking about when
Whatever he wants to do, he can do.
I remember Steve Island. I remember like in the '90s. I think he was in the early stages of Beefcake and Chains, which I think is his on and off band still to this day. And he was. I had known him for years, but I go sit at the bar. I'm getting like my beer before I go play it. He's hanging out there, and I'm thinking, oh, he's just having a drink. They served him a pitcher of whiskey, like Jack Daniels and Coke, and he's drinking it like it's no big deal. A pitcher. And he got up and walked away. I didn't
Damn.
seem affected by it or not, but I was like, the dude's big enough for his body weight, he can
Damn.
handle it. And he's like, I said, how was it? Nah, it was all right. Was it strong?
It
And
was
then
all
he'd just go
right.
outside and hang out and talk to me. It did like he never seemed fazed by it.
No,
Man,
probably
those days
not.
I'd have one Long Island, man. I
Okay.
didn't even want to go on stage. I was like, okay, I'm good. Especially if you're just like a beer
Yeah,
drinking
but
thing.
you're not Steve Island.
No, but what's funny is I didn't see one bit of effect from any of that. He seemed the
No,
same.
no. Some people are just like that.
I mean, I've seen him. I mean, all of us have at one point been a little more inebriated than the time before, but he was. I think he just absorbed a lot because of his. He was a big guy.
Yeah, yeah.
He was like the big
He
brother.
just
He was
can
way old.
handle
Like
it.
I said, he was 6 to 7 years older than Mike.
Oh, and he's everybody's big brother.
Even the guys that are young enough, that are way younger than me, but he still stayed active. It's starting to do the same thing.
Uh-oh. Okay, Ray, we better say goodnight.
Okay.
So let's
Well, if
say
there's any other
goodnight,
time,
Ray.
have a good night. It was great talking to you, Deanna. Thank you.
It
Thanks for
was
your patience.
really a good day. No, thanks for
For sure.
spending the day with me. I'm glad we have
Of
it all
course,
recorded.
anytime. Anytime. It was fun.
Yeah. We'll do some more music episodes and we'll check back in July of next year to see how your new project is coming along.
Sounds like a good night.
All right. Take care, Ray. Have a good night.
You
Bye
too.
bye.
Bye.